Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something we literally all deal with every single day, but we rarely ever stop to actually dissect it: friendship. You know, it's incredibly easy to think of having friends as just this modern lifestyle perk, like maybe a luxury we try to squeeze in on the weekends if we happen to have some free time. But the science? Well, the science tells a completely different story. Friendship isn't a luxury at all. It is a hardwired biological necessity.
Right now, it's no secret we're living through a modern loneliness epidemic, with social isolation shooting up across almost all age groups. And it leaves us with this massive, heavy sense of emptiness. But to understand why that isolation actually hurts us so much, we have to ask a pretty core question. Why did humans evolve to crave deep social connection in the first place? Like, why is a lack of friends treated by our bodies as a literal threat to our survival?
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the social brain hypothesis, then understanding Dunbar's number, the taxonomy of friendship, loneliness versus your body, and finally, the 80-year Harvard study. Starting right off with part 1, the social brain hypothesis. Big heads, big networks. Picture our ancient ancestors for a second. We didn't exactly have razor-sharp claws, we definitely weren't incredibly fast, and we had zero natural armor. Our absolute best survival strategy was cohesion. We had to stick together in groups. But here's the thing, managing a group requires an unbelievable amount of brain power. You've got to remember who is who, track all these complex social hierarchies, figure out who owes who a favor, and of course, spot deception. The social brain hypothesis basically argues that the outermost part of our brain, the neocortex, absolutely exploded in size specifically to handle this massive social processing load. We literally evolved big brains just so we could connect. And to put that into perspective, here's why that evolutionary leap is so staggering. Your brain accounts for only about 2% of your total body weight, right? But it hogs a whopping 20% of your body's energy. In the incredibly harsh environment of early human evolution, taking on that kind of metabolic cost was a massive gamble. The only way nature ever justifies spending a fifth of your energy on a single organ is if the payoff is survival. And that payoff, it was social cooperation.
Which brings us to part 2. Understanding Dunbar's number, the limits of connection.
And this brilliantly illustrates the research of anthropologist Robin Dunbar. See, because our neocortex is only so big, our actual cognitive capacity to maintain stable, meaningful relationships maxes out at around 150 people. This is famously known as Dunbar's number. But it's not just some random unstructured crowd of 150 folks, it's actually a highly structured series of layers. Think of it kind of like a target. In the center, you have about 5 best friends you drop anything for. Then, 15 close friends for deep emotional support, 50 casual friends you might invite to a big group dinner, and finally, a hard cap of 150 meaningful contacts. Now you might be thinking, hold on, I have way more than 150 followers online. Well, researchers actually analyzed a massive dataset of 61 million Facebook pages a while back. And do you know what the average number of friends was? Exactly 149. No way, right? It turns out, even when digital spaces completely remove geographical barriers and communication constraints, our biological hardware keeps our core networks capped right at Dunbar's limit. Sure, you can add more people online, but biologically speaking, they're basically just voyeurs sitting outside your cognitive capacity.
All right, let's move into part 3, the taxonomy of friendship, categorizing your crew.
In modern adulthood, our social networks are honestly all over the place. We navigate everything from simple acquaintances we just wave to on the street, to casual friends we might share a hobby with, to the work friends who literally keep us sane from 9 to 5. And that goes all the way up to those deeply connected, close, best, and lifelong friends. Every single one of these categories, from the outermost ring to your absolute innermost core, serves a highly specific, unique function for our overall psychological well-being. It actually turns out that the strength of these ties serves entirely different purposes. Weak ties, like, say, a quick, friendly chat with a neighbor or your local barista, those are incredibly crucial. They ground us, they introduce novelty, and they reduce burnout and feelings of isolation. But strong ties,
That's your chosen family. They provide the deep trust and emotional buffering that our brains desperately rely on for security when we face major life stressors. You really need both to thrive, but your strong ties are quite literally your survival armor.
Let's transition to part 4, loneliness versus your body. The biological stakes.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how stark the reality is when things go wrong. We all know smoking is absolutely terrible for us, right? Well, the research clearly shows that the physical damage caused by chronic loneliness is as powerful a health threat as alcoholism. In fact, it can shave as many years off your life as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That is wild. Social isolation isn't just a sad feeling you get, it is a severe, highly measurable medical risk factor.
To put that into perspective, when researchers analyzed 148 different studies covering hundreds of thousands of people, they found that those with strong social bonds had a 50% greater chance of survival than those with poor connections. And the neurobiology totally explains why. Positive interactions actually trigger the release of oxytocin and dopamine in your brain. That chemical rush calms your nervous system down, lowers your blood pressure, reduces chronic inflammation, and literally slows down the cellular aging process in your body.
Finally, part 5, the 80-year Harvard study. The ultimate proof.
Way back in 1938, scientists started the Harvard Study of Adult Development. They decided to track 2 wildly different groups of men, highly privileged Harvard sophomores and underprivileged teenagers from some of Boston's poorest neighborhoods. They followed these guys through World War II, through their marriages, parenthood, career successes and failures, all the way into their 80s and 90s. They even expanded the study to include their children. It is the single longest running study of its kind in human history.
And out of nearly a century of rigorous data, you know what didn't win out? Wealth, IQ, and social class. The most profound finding of the entire study was this: how satisfied you are in your relationships at age 50 is a vastly better predictor of your physical health at age 80 than your cholesterol levels at age 50. Let that sink in. The people who were the most connected were consistently the healthiest, both physically and cognitively as they aged. So the crucial point is really captured by Dr. Robert Waldinger, the current director of the study. Tending to your friendships isn't just some fun side quest you do when you have free time. It is a mandatory form of self-care. It's preventative medicine for your whole body. But hey, the really good news? The research also shows it is absolutely never too late to start building this natural medicine into your life. Honestly, whether you're 25 or 75, the steps are pretty much exactly the same. First, just reach out. You gotta make the first move. Next, show a little vulnerability. That's how you turn a weak tie into a strong one. Then, invest the actual time required to build that trust. And finally, keep at it. Send that quick text, schedule that coffee catch-up, and make the effort to continuously engage.
So, what does this all mean for you? Well, it leaves us with a final, really important question to ponder. Think about your own cognitive capacity for a second. Who currently makes up your 150? More importantly, are you investing in the people sitting right there in that inner circle of 5 and 15? Because knowing the science is one thing, for sure, but taking action is what actually changes your biology. So who are you going to reach out to today? Pick up the phone, nurture those life-saving bonds, and I'll see you in the next explainer.